What's happening, guys? I hope we're doing good. Today I've upgraded. Hopefully you see a difference in my audio quality, and today we're talking about what is dyslexia, like a new look at dyslexia. And then we'll be breaking down some like beliefs that people thought, oh, this is what dyslexia is, and we're not going through the old traditional way about what is dyslexia, but in actual fact we're going through a more useful and accurate way for you to understand what is your dyslexia. I hope you enjoy it, guys, and please leave a comment, share and subscribe this podcast. Take care, guys, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. What's happening, guys? I hope we're doing good and I hope we're doing all right. Today I want to talk to us about what is dyslexia. I know there always beeps happen just after 5 seconds, turn that off. But what is dyslexia? And we may have a new look about what is it in a very, very, very useful way. We can talk about a lot of stuff. But before I get into that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that, look, I've had an upgrade. An upgrade because of two reasons. On video format, which I'm also doing this as well as the audio, there's a little light thing. You know these things like light rings that where people have a phone, they take photos and it's perfect lighting. There's a little ring of light, it shines light at you. And I haven't got one I never really thought I needed one. But because I get home from work and it's nighttime outside, I recently invested in this little light thing that shows me good light. I'm using it now, and it looks amazing. It looks really, really, really cool. And the second thing is, you may notice, hopefully you notice, that the audio is a bit clearer, a bit more precise. And the reason why, because I've got a little mic on me that I had before. I use it to record basically my Conquering Dyslexia. What is it? Deep dive or something like that for like 8 hours, and I lost this mic. And my mum recently found it, so that's quite cool. So let's get in. So what is dyslexia? Now, when we look at this, you might be dreading this, or you might be thinking, I know what dyslexia is. Dreading this because I'll get out all these different definitions and all these different researches and all these different, this is what dyslexia is, this is what dyslexia, this is what it is. And doing that, and I'm not going to do that, and I'm not going to talk to you like you know what dyslexia is. It's a phonological deficit. It's this. It's different in the difference in the brain wiring. It's the left and right hemispheres. All this other stuff. I'm not going to talk about that because guess why? It's really hard to make that useful. It's really hard to make it in a way that we can relate in our own lives. Because people look at it, okay, I've got my hat on, dyslexia hat on, I've read all this stuff, I've done all these studies, all these different theories of dyslexia, and I can now say what dyslexia is, and they just spout out a load of gobbledygook that I find it really hard to understand and visualize, because there's so many terms about the brain and the different parts of the brain, and the occipital and this part and that part, and I don't feel that helps me. There's no point of having a definition of something that's not clear and suffice, and that helps me. And if it doesn't help me, there's no point. You know what I mean? If it doesn't actually make my life better in some way, I've clarify something, maybe understand something, there's no real point. And I remember I spent ages trying to find out what is dyslexia in a way that I understood it. I read so many books. I was looking for all these different diagrams, all these different theories of dyslexia, and all this stuff. And I was looking at all this different stuff. And what I really come to the conclusion of is that dyslexia is way much more than one single definition. One single definition about the phonological, one single definition about this one thing. Yes, there's ways we can talk about it in a way that we understand it, but this is how I look at it. Look, ultimately, dyslexia is a different experience of life. It is. Dyslexia is something that we call a phonological, a neurodiversity. Dyslexia is a type of neurodiversity, because it is. And what neurodiversity means? Neuro, different in the brain diversity, like you think very differently, neurodiversity. And that's what dyslexia is. It's a type of neurodiversity. Also, there's a lot of other types of neurodiversity. There's autism, there's dyspraxia, there's dyscalculia. All these different forms of neurodiversity means the brain is wired slightly differently. And we human beings are meaning-making creatures. We love to put a meaning onto different things. Oh, this means that. This means this thing. This means that thing over there. And when we create all these different meanings for something, we can put people in a box. Here are the limitations. We make sense of it, but the truth is, our brains are so complex, and we're basically learning so much about dyslexia, especially over the last 20 years, when the MRI machine, maybe 30 years now, MRI machine is created, and we can start to learn about the brain, about what's happening in the brain when it does this activity, when it does this activity, how people would differ from each other. And there's been amazing progress in this area, but the point is that there's so much different boxes people are going to fit in, but ultimately we don't experience dyslexia as a box. We experience our dyslexia as an experience of life. We go through so many of these different situations and different things happen to us, and then we create different meanings out of that, and then we can move forward. Well, who am I? What does the world mean? What are these people? How can I navigate this? And moving forward in this. And everyone has a different experience of dyslexia, because everyone has a different experience of life. Because dyslexia is very diverse. It's not one type of dyslexia. There's so many different types of dyslexia. When I say types, there's not there's 74 different types of dyslexia. What I mean is saying, okay, you find this hard, you find this hard, you find this easy, you know what I mean? You find this easy. And just navigating our world and making progress. And what happens if someone says, well, I haven't got diagnosed with dyslexia, but I think it might be this or this or this, or I think I might have it. To me, you know what I think? It does not matter if you're dyslexic or not. Because look, if you think you've got dyslexia, then just maybe call yourself dyslexic. Instead of calling yourself dumb, stupid, you know what I mean? Maybe like a little bit lost, slow. Because if you label yourself with those things, guess what? You experience them in your life. But if you label it with something like, oh, I got dyslexia, this means I think differently, then you can use it a bit more in your life, okay? It doesn't matter if someone's diagnosed. Now, if you be to a lot of people and really try to see, okay, I haven't got dyslexia, they wouldn't just say, oh no, you haven't got dyslexia and leave you on your own. They would say, oh, maybe about this or this or this, and give you other alternatives that you can look into and can do research of. So I gave you maybe a little bit overview, or kind of my opinion, as it will. But if you look to the history of dyslexia, there's a German ornithologist, I forgot his name, whatever, I forget everyone's name. Anyway, he had these clients, and he noticed some of his clients had good intelligence, but they couldn't figure out what English. They couldn't figure out what reading and writing is. And because of these clients couldn't figure out reading and writing and simple things that he thought that they could do, he coined the word. I think the first person said word blindness. The second person coined it dyslexia. Dyslexia is Greek for problem with words, basically. Now here's a funny little caveat. This problem, lexia, was, I think, didn't learn Greek properly, and it didn't mean word, it meant something else. But basically, through that time, there's been a word called dyslexia been going about, and obviously been proven through loads of people. There's loads of studies been done. And especially over the last 30 years, 20 years, we've got so much more research into what is dyslexia. And 99.9% of that research has all been focused about what they can't do. Because they look at a person and say, okay, this person can't read, but he can do all these other things. And they say, okay, you can't really do, but you can do all these other things. You must have, this thing called dyslexia. And why is it bad? How can we fix the negative? Because it's classified as a learning disability. But guess what? It is not a learning disability. That if you look at the actual definition of a learning disability and definition of dyslexia, they are two different things. With dyslexia, you can learn with the right strategy. You can process with the right strategies. You can move forward with the right strategies. Learning disability, meaning there's a cap, there's a limit. You physically cannot do this. With dyslexia, you can do this. It's just a different way of learning. Do you understand that? And this is the biggest misconception that, look, dyslexia is not a learning disability. It's not something that stops you. There's no ceiling to it. It is only a different way of processing the information. And once people understand that, and because there's so many people who've been growing up to believe all these negative things about dyslexia because of all the past history that's been on it, the past history on what they can't do, and people find out, people don't go look at you, oh, this person is so visually creative, he must be dyslexic. No, they say this person's handwriting's rubbish, this person's reading's rubbish, this person's writing rubbish, he might be dyslexic. You know what I mean? And like all the focus on, okay, what's the negative part? Not what the gifts are. They don't sit a group of people down and say, close your eyes. Imagine an object. Okay, they imagine that object and say, rotate that object in your head. So you're looking at it from this angle. And maybe like out of a room of 100, 20 people could do that. The rest of the people couldn't. And those 20 people are the ones that are dyslexic because they can do it visually. Does that make sense, guys? I hope we understand that. So that's kind of the way I sort of like approach dyslexia. Now, when we talk about the negative signs of dyslexia, there's obviously the positive signs of dyslexia. And the biggest thing, like I call this the yin and yang of dyslexia. With dyslexia, there's a yin and the yang of it. What's the yin? The yin are the physical problems that we face. What I mean by the physical problems is when we're born, our brain is like a dyslexic brain, yeah? And we are going to come up against these challenges that the environment around us sets us. We can't change that. We can't change being dyslexic like that. We have to deal with it and move forward with it. Okay? But that's the yin. And those people focus on the yin, by the way. They focus on these challenges they have and not be able and think, okay, this is the problem. But normal times it's the yang that's the problem. What's the yang? The yang is the emotional side of dyslexia. We're not born with believing that we're stupid. We're not born believing we can't do it. We're not born believing that we're, one of the odd ones out or no one understands us. We're not born believing anything or feeling anything or having any ideas about ourselves. But it's through time we develop these. And very, very, very often it's our beliefs about ourselves that are keeping us from making progress, that are keeping us from moving forward in this area of doing that thing, of working hard to get that C in English. It's these beliefs that are holding us back. But we always focus on our physical problems, not looking at the whole other side of it, our emotional challenges. And if you start to focus on our emotional challenges and only focus there and understand, have the intelligence to understand, look, I know I'm a human being, I'm not dumb. I believe it, but I know I'm not. Why? Because other people have been dyslexic, other people have been in the same situation as me, and yet they've come through, yet they thought these things about themselves, but yet they turned a new leaf. And realized, okay, for me to be able to do things I want to do, or get out of this rut I'm in, I need to believe different things about myself. And I go on the process of doing that, the process of getting rid of their beliefs. You mean of negative beliefs and having proper installed positive ones. Like, what is dyslexia? Dyslexia isn't a learning disability. It's a different way of thinking. There's so many positives about dyslexia. Do you understand, guys? And once we can really differentiate between, okay, what am I born with and what have I developed? We would always 100% know it with our confidence, with our self-esteem, with ideas about ourselves or ideas about the world or our limitations. There's always a belief. There's always an opinion. There's always a story we tell ourselves. But in order to get where you want to go, in order to do the things you want to do, sometimes there's things holding us back. And 9 times out of 10, what's holding us back is the story we tell about ourselves, about why we can't have it. So that's why we must start moving forward to get that thing, to focus on that. So here's my little maybe task for today, and what will be useful for you, I feel, is something called the dyslexia blueprint. I'll do like a 40-minute training on this and all this sort of stuff. But what the dyslexic blueprint in essence is like basically a thinking process. And we write them down. So we look at the yin and yang of dyslexia, the physical challenges, thing we're born with, and the emotional side of dyslexia. And basically we write down all our strengths we have and our physical side of our yin, okay, of dyslexia. Okay, I can think 3D, I can do all these things, I'm very good at imagination, I come up with ideas really fast, all these things, okay, or the emotional So the physical strengths. And then we go to the physical weaknesses. What do you find hard? Reading, writing, spelling, communicating, all these other things. You mean write these down. Because these things are our dyslexia. And then we go to the other side of it. What, like our emotional strengths. Now these things are often hard-working. You mean always willing to solve the problem, persevering, the gift of grit. We write all our strengths down, and then we go on the other side, our emotional weaknesses. What do you feel about yourself? Because oftentimes we can feel bad about ourselves, and a good way of finding out what the stories we tell ourselves is, what would I have to believe in order to feel this way? Or what story would I have to tell myself in order to feel this way? And that would get us to realize, okay, these are the stories I'm telling, these are the beliefs, these are completely untrue, I just believe them, okay? And here are basically what's holding me back. Because let me tell you something, if you got rid of all your emotional challenges, then you wouldn't feel bad at all. You'd have the same physical challenges, but yet you would be on a good mood, but yet you'd be happy, you'd be excited, you'd be thrilled. And if you think you have those emotions day to day, do you think the physical challenges will be as much? No. They would be so little, you wouldn't even notice them. Yeah, well, my hand might be say, yeah, this is challenges, but I'm not going to let it stop me. I can still do the things that other people think is impossible because maybe you believe in yourself, maybe you can do it. Guys, I hope you're understanding this, understand the yin and yang of dyslexia and put it into action, because so often we're focusing on, basically we put all our focus on what we can't do, basically our problems of dyslexia, and we think, okay, we've got to solve this is what's stopping us. But what you really realize is what's stopping us is our emotional side of dyslexia. As soon as we start working on that and improving that, everything gets better in our life. Guys, take care, farewell, and I hope you enjoyed the audio. Let me know what you think of the audio, if it's good, if it's rubbish. Say, I can't hear you, Theo, at all, then we'll change it. Anyway, guys, take care, farewell, and bye. So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe, where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be? Or in other words, conquer their dyslexia? That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast.